I get.
So we are starting to read the fifth agreement by Don Miguel Ruiz. Today is the first day.
The Toltec. Thousands of years ago, the Toltec were known throughout southern Mexico as women and men of knowledge. Anthropologists have spoken of the Toltec as a nation or a race. But in fact, the Toltec were scientists and artists who formed a society to explore and conserve the spiritual knowledge and practices of the ancient ones.
So again, basically all tribes, they had a shaman. And so the Toltec were the shamans of this group. Okay, they were the scientists, they were the researchers, they were the seers, people who were going into altered states of consciousness and getting back information which was for the benefit of the tribe.
They came together as masters, Naguals, and students as Teotihuacan, the ancient city of pyramids outside Mexico City, known as the place where man becomes God. Over the millennia, the Naguals were forced to conceal the ancestral wisdom and maintain its existence in obscurity.
So again, the point was over here very clearly, Mexico City, known as the place where man becomes God, right? So how does man become God? When you start going into these altered states and you start hitting those states of consciousness, that is when you come closer to God. Okay, and also most people didn't understand these processes. So that's why many of these secrets were kept hidden. This was true for India also. The Tantric Vidya and all that was all kept hidden because most people were not enlightened enough or educated enough to actually understand what was being said. Shimangla. Shimangla.
Yes. European conquest, coupled with rampant misuse of personal power by a few of the apprentices, made it necessary to shield the knowledge from those who were not prepared to use it wisely or who might intentionally misuse it for personal gain.
So again, this is true for India also, where people who went into these states of consciousness, they started using it for personal gain, which is something which is not appreciated at those higher realms of consciousness. So naturally, things were hidden from those people who might start to misuse it. That's why even Tantra, which is a very pure science, was totally, disgraced in India because certain people started misusing the teachings of the Tantric Vidya. So the same thing happened over there also.
Fortunately, the esoteric Toltec knowledge was embodied and passed on through generations by different lineages of Naguals. Though it remained veiled in secrecy for hundreds of years, ancient prophecies foretold the coming of an age when it would be necessary to return the wisdom to the people. Now, Don Miguel Ruiz and Don Jose Ruiz, Naguals from the Eagle Knight lineage, have been guided to share with us the powerful teachings of the Toltec.
So again, naturally, it's passed through generation, right? It was kept inside the generations. Now, of course, that is also a question mark, whether it is actually right to keep it just in the generations or not. But that was the way that it was actually saved. In India, of course, the teaching was passed on to, we had the Guru Shishya culture. Over here, it was within the family.
Toltec wisdom arises from the same essential unity of truth as all the sacred esoteric traditions found around the world. Though it is not a religion, it honors all the spiritual masters who have taught on the earth. While it does embrace spirit, it is most accurately described as a way of life, distinguished by the ready accessibility of happiness and love.
So again, the Sanatan Dharma in India is also a way of life. So their teachings were a way of life. It had no religious connotations. It had connections with spirituality, right? So there's a very big difference between religion and spirituality. Religion becomes ritualistic, but spirituality deals with the spirit. It deals with consciousness. It deals with awareness, right? So that's what they were doing in this process. It became a way of life of how they were living. So it became a process of awareness.
Introduction by Don Miguel Ruiz. The Four Agreements was published many years ago. If you have read the book, you already know what these agreements can do. They have the ability to transform your life by breaking thousands of limiting agreements you have made with yourself, with other people, with life itself.
So again, the four agreements, as we talked about it, being impeccable with your word, do not taking things personally, doing your best, and making no assumptions, right? If you can start adhering to these principles in your day-to-day life, I can write it and give it to you that there will be shifts, there will be transformation which takes place in your life. Just being aware of the four of them makes things very different. The way that everything around you is occurring to you can make a major shift.
The first time you read the Four Agreements, it begins to work its magic. It goes much deeper than the words you are reading. You feel that you already know every word in the book. You feel it, but perhaps you never put it into words. When you read the book the first time, it challenges what you believe and takes you to the limit of your comprehension.
So now, why does it challenge your belief, right? Most of us are used to making white lies. We become lazy and do not do our best. We take most things personally and we are constantly making assumptions, right? How many people can raise their hand and say today that they don't gossip at all? Anyone, you'll find that 90% of the people are gossiping. They are saying things, but they don't have any real information in their hand. They're making assumptions all the time, right? Now, if you got to start paying attention, whether you're being impeccable with your word, whatever you're saying, you're adhering to it 99% of the time, or 99 100% of the time. You're making no assumptions. You don't take things personally, and you're every time you're doing your best, right? How many of us can say that yes, we are doing all these things, I mean, in our lives, in our day-to-day lives? So now when you start becoming aware that whether I'm doing it or not, that is what actually starts creating the shifts in our lives.
You break many limiting agreements and overcome many challenges. But then you see new challenges. When you read the book a second time, it feels as if you're reading a completely different book because the limits of your comprehension have already grown. Once again, it takes you into a deeper awareness of yourself, and you reach the limit that you can reach in that moment. And when you read the book a third time, it's just as if you're reading another book. Just
So
like magic.
as we grow, our ability to perceive our life experiences start to shift us, right? That's why it's many times it's important to revisit books that have actually transformed you or helped you in transforming yourself.
Just like magic, because they are magic. The Four Agreements slowly help you to recover your authentic self. With practice, these four simple agreements take you to what you really are, not what you pretend to be. And this is exactly where you want to be, what you really are.
So again, most of us are roaming around with facades, right? We are pretending. We are not being authentic with ourselves. We are not doing our best. We constantly take things personally, even if they are not being said to us, right? And we are constantly making assumptions. So we are not being who we really are. And what have we come here in this world to be? What we truly are. Unless we become our true selves, we will not experience the experiences that we've come here to experience. And then we'll have to come back to experience them once again, right? So it becomes very important to actually touch base with who we really are.
Just like magic, the principles in the four agreements speak to the heart of all human beings, from the young to the old. They speak to people of different cultures all around the world. People who speak different languages, people whose religious and philosophical beliefs are vastly different. They have been taught at different kinds of schools, from elementary schools to secondary schools to universities. The principles in the four agreements reach everyone because they are pure common sense.
So now this is a tenet of anything which is based in truth and is spiritual in nature, right? When something is based on truth, it transcends all cultures. If it is based on religion, then it may not transcend all cultures. But if it is based on truth, it will transcend all cultures, all religion, all philosophies. And I think the four agreements definitely do this.
Now it's time to give another gift, the fifth agreement. The fifth agreement wasn't included in my first book because the first four agreements were enough of a challenge at that time.
So again, being constantly impeccable with your word, constantly doing your best, constantly not taking things personally, and constantly making no assumptions is not an easy task to do, right? When you start paying attention, then you'll start realizing how many times we all slip up. So naturally, it was a huge challenge.
The fifth agreement is made with words, of course, but its meaning and intent is beyond the words. The fifth agreement is ultimately about seeing your whole reality with the eyes of truth, without words. The result of practicing the fifth agreement is the complete acceptance of yourself just the way you are, and the complete acceptance of everybody else just the way they are. The reward is your eternal happiness.
So again, as the fifth agreement, in my view, would be when we drop all facades and we stop seeing the facades that people around us put up. So we become our authentic self. And when we become our authentic self, automatically we start becoming happier.
Many years ago, I began teaching some of the concepts in this book to my apprentices. But then I stopped because nobody seemed to understand what I was trying to say. Though I had shared the fifth agreement with my apprentices, I discovered that nobody was ready to learn the teachings that underlie this agreement. Years later, my son, Don Jose, started to share the same teachings with a group of students, and he succeeded where I had failed. Maybe the reason Don Jose was successful was because he had complete faith in sharing the message. His very presence spoke the truth and challenged the beliefs of the people who attended his classes. He made a huge difference in their lives.
So again, whenever we are giving a message, right, we have to be authentic. If today I'm asking someone to do something, then I also must be doing it. Otherwise, I have no authority or right to tell that other person to be doing something. Right. So again, what he's saying very clearly here is that Don Jose, his son, came from that authenticity, came from that truth, which reflected the fifth agreement. That's why people got it.
Jose Ruiz has been my apprentice since he was a child, since he learned to speak. In this book, I am honored to introduce my son and to present the essence of the teachings we delivered together over a period of 7 years. To keep the message as personal as possible, and in keeping with the first person voice of prior books in the Toltec Wisdom series, we have opted to present the fifth agreement in the same first person style of writing. In this book, we speak to the reader with one voice and with one heart.
So part one, the power of symbols.
In the beginning, it's all in the program. From the moment you are born, you deliver a message to the world. What is the message? The message is you, that child. It's the presence of an angel, a messenger from the infinite in a human body. The infinite, a total power, creates a program just for you. And everything you need to be what you are is in the program.
So what is he saying very clearly, right? Each one of us is unique. Each one of us is a program. We are in the DNA, in our DNA, the program is there as to what we are going to do, what are we going to become, what are we going to be susceptible to. The field is already created the moment you are conceived, right? And as we are seeing when we are going into the Lifeline programs, the X27 programs, etc., we come to understand that we actually, and when we are in those expanded states of consciousness, we actually decide what we want to do and be in the lifetime that we are going to be existing. So the program has been created, right? Now we are connected with the infinite. In those expanded states, you can actually experience that also. So when we are coming into this earth life existence, the program is already written for us. And whatever issues that we are going to be facing, we have the resources to be able to deal with them. Otherwise, that program would not have been written for us, right? So it's very important that we understand this, that everything that we need to run the program is actually already within us. But for that, we need to drop the facade. We need to connect with our true selves.
You are born, you grow up, you mate, you grow old, and in the end, you return to the infinite. Every cell in your body is a universe of its own. It's intelligent, it's complete, and it's programmed to be whatever it is.
So absolutely, right? Every cell in our body has a brain, has intelligence. It reacts to the environments. It grows, right? There's no difference between the cell in my skin and the cell inside my stomach, but they are performing totally different procedures. They're performing totally different tasks, right? So every cell in our body is actually intelligent.
You are programmed to be you, whatever you are, and it makes no difference to the program what your mind thinks you are. The program is not in the thinking mind, it's in the body, in what we call the DNA, and in the beginning, you instinctively follow its wisdom.
So this is very important, right? Today, the program runs the system. But when the mind comes into play, that is when the facade starts to come up. When the ego mind comes into the picture, right? That is when the jhamela starts. Otherwise, if today you see a child, the child is not concerned with anything. It will do what it wants to do very clearly. So it's following an inner direction. Whereas when we start operating from the mind, we start looking for direction from others, which is not what we are truly made from. We have to take direction from that inner guidance, that inner wisdom which is there, which we drop because of the facade that we carry around.
As a very young child, you know what you like, what you don't like, when you like it, when you don't. You follow what you like and you try to avoid what you don't like. You follow your instincts, and those instincts guide you to be happy, to enjoy life, to play, to love, to fulfill your needs. Then what happens?
So again, when you're young, you actually just do what you enjoy doing. But as you grow older, that facade makes you do things that you may not want to do, right? So the trick over here very clearly is that you need to do what you enjoy doing throughout your life, right? If you're being impeccable with your word, then you're very clear that I will do what I enjoy doing.
Your body begins to develop, your mind begins to mature, and you begin to use symbols to deliver your message. Just as the birds understand the birds and the cats understand the cats, the humans understand the humans through a symbology.
So again, all kinds of communication use symbols, right? They are indicating certain things. So even a language, the words A, B, C, D is a symbol. You have an apple and you show an apple to a baby. It's a symbol, right? So symbolism is very, very important in all kinds of communication.
If you were born on an island and then lived all alone, it might take you 10 years, but you would have given a name to everything that you see, and you would use that language to communicate a message, even if it was only to yourself. Why would you do this? Well, it's easy to understand, and it's not because humans are so intelligent. It's because we are programmed to create a language, to invent an entire symbology for ourselves.
So basically, we create that symbology to communicate with others and with ourselves. But it is mainly for ourselves so that we can understand. And then slowly that symbology can get expanded into society, and then everyone starts to speak the same language. That is why so many different languages are there in the world.
As you know, all around the world, humans speak and write in thousands of different languages. Humans have invented all kinds of symbols to communicate not only with other humans, but more importantly, with ourselves. The symbols can be sounds that we speak, motions that we make, or handwriting and signs that are graphic in nature. There are symbols for objects, ideas, music, and mathematics. But the introduction of sounds is the very first step, which means we learn to use symbols to speak.
So again, always we have to find means of communication, right? That is what this entire thing is all about, symbology. Just 1 second, Shivanga, just hold on, please. Shivangla.
The humans who come before us already have names for everything that exists, and they teach us the meaning of sounds. They call this a table, they call that a chair. They also have names for things that only exist in our imagination, like mermaids and unicorns. Every word that we learn is a symbol for something real or imagined, and there are thousands of words to learn. If we observe children who are 1 to 4 years old, we can see the effort they make trying to learn an entire symbology. It's a big effort that we usually don't remember because our mind is not yet mature. But with repetition and practice, we finally learn to speak.
So again, children, you'll see they learn one step at a time. First, they'll start using one word, then they'll start connecting the dots and make it into some sentences, etc., etc. Right? So every child has to learn the symbolism of the society in which the child lives. So if you're living in Germany, you learn German. If you're living somewhere in India, you may learn Hindi or If you're living in South India, maybe Tamil or whatever. If you're living in America, you learn English most of the time, and so on and so forth.
Once we learn to speak, the humans who take care of us teach us what they know, which means they program us with knowledge.
So this is important, right? Every person gets a program. And one is an internal program which comes with the DNA. And now this is the external program. That is the Niyam Kanun, or the rules and regulations of society. What means what? That starts to get programmed into us.
The humans we live with have lots of knowledge, including all the social, religious, and moral rules of their culture. They hook our attention, pass on the information, and teach us to be like them. We learn how to be a man or a woman according to the society in which we are born. We learn how to behave the right way in our society, which means how to be a good human.
So again, what may be right in one society may be totally wrong in another society. So whichever society we grow up in and where our elders are, where we are born, we start to pick up the truths or so-called truths according to the rules and regulations or the symbolism of that particular society. Whether it's right or wrong is a question mark, right? But we pick up whatever is right in one society, in the society we are born, we pick that up. So what may be right in one society may be totally wrong in another society.
In truth, we are domesticated the same way that a dog, a cat, or any animal is domesticated, through a system of punishment and reward.
So again, cats and dogs are trained through punishment and reward. And that is how even our children, we also give punishment and reward to our children so that they get what we are attempting to tell them. Right. So it's basically the same process of learning.
We are told that we are a good boy or a good girl when we do what the grown-ups want us to do. We are a bad boy or a bad girl when we don't do what they want us to do. Sometimes we are punished without being bad, and sometimes we are rewarded without being good. Out of fear of being punished and fear of not getting a reward, we start trying to please other people. We try to be good because bad people don't receive rewards. They are punished.
So this is where the facade starts to come up, right? We are not being our authentic selves. We are not being our true selves. We are attempting to please the other guy. So naturally, we have to put up a facade. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to please the other guy.
In human domestication, all the rules and values of our family and society are imposed on us. We don't have the opportunity to choose our beliefs. We are told what to believe and what not to believe.
So you will grow up in a society taking on the traditions, cultures, and the truth of that so-called society. Now, whether it is actually the authentic truth or not, that's a big question mark. But that is how you will be brought up.
The people we live with tell us their opinions, what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong, what is beautiful and what is ugly. Just like a computer, all that information is downloaded into our head. We are innocent. We believe what our parents or other grown-ups tell us. We agree and the information is stored in our memory. Everything we learn goes into our mind by agreement, and it stays in our mind by agreement, but first it goes through the attention.
So again, whatever we pay attention to, that is what gets into our mind, right? So now, and that becomes our agreement. If we keep repeating something over and over again, it becomes an internalized agreement.
The attention is very important in humans because it's the part of the mind that makes it possible for us to concentrate on a single object or thought out of a whole range of possibilities.
So again, the human mind cannot do two things at the same time at a conscious level, right? So there are so many things happening around us all the time, and it's impossible for us to pay attention to everything. So where we pay our attention, that is where our intention will be, right? So we have to start seeing what we are doing.
Through the attention, information from the outside is conveyed to the inside and vice versa. The attention is the channel we use to send and receive messages from human to human. It's like a bridge from one mind to another mind. We open the bridge with sounds, signs, symbols, touch, with any event that hooks the attention.
So be paying attention is what allows us to learn via symbolism, via whatever means, right? Whatever we pay attention to, that is what we learn. And that is how we communicate also.
This is how we teach and this is how we learn. We cannot teach anything if we don't have someone's attention. We cannot learn anything if we don't pay attention.
So this is very important, right? In any setup, any seminar, any classroom, if the student is not paying attention, it is impossible to teach the student. And we cannot learn anything if we are not paying attention. So paying attention for growing and knowing is extremely important.
Using the attention, the grown-ups teach us how to create an entire reality in our mind with the use of symbols.
So again, we create our reality with our minds, right? We create our reality with our thinking process. So whatever we are thinking, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm ugly, I'm beautiful, I'm fair, I'm dark, etc., etc. Right? We create our reality by using symbols with our mind.
After they teach us a symbology by sound, the grown-ups drill us with our ABCs and we learn the same language but graphically. Our imagination begins to develop, our curiosity grows stronger, and we start to ask questions. We ask and we keep asking questions. We gather information from everywhere. And we know that we finally mastered a language when we are able to use the symbols to talk to ourselves in our head.
So again, most of the time we are all talking in our head. The mind is never silent. That is what we are attempting to do, to silence the mind when we are going into these altered states. That is when your true authentic self can come out, right? The chatter in the mind will not let our true authentic self come out.
This is when we learn to think. Before that, we don't think. We mimic sounds and we use symbols to communicate. But life is simple before we attach any meaning or emotion to the symbols.
So again, a symbol is a symbol. It starts developing a charge when we start attaching emotion to the symbol. Right. Now, this is important. Even with karma, in my view, when we attach emotion to an action, that is only when it becomes karma. So over here, he is using a symbol as a mean of demonstrating that same thing, right? So if you attach any emotion to a symbol, that is when the problem starts to occur.
Once we give meaning to the symbols, we begin to use them to try to make sense of everything that happens in our lives. We use the symbols to think about things that are real and to think about things that aren't real, but that we start to imagine are real, like beautiful and ugly, skinny and fat, smart and stupid. And if you notice, we can only think in a language that we master.
So again, what we need to look at, what is the language do we think in? When we think in one language, then we use the symbolism of that language.
For many years, I spoke only Spanish, and it took a long time for me to master enough symbols in English to think in English. To master a language is not easy, but at a certain point, we find ourselves thinking with the symbols we learn.
So we think in our head, right? What is the language that we think in?
By the time we go to school, when we are 5 or 6 years old, we understand the meaning of abstract concepts like right and wrong, winner and loser, perfect and imperfect. In school, we continue to learn how to read and write the symbols we already know, and the written language makes it possible for us to accumulate more knowledge. We continue to give meaning to more and more symbols, and thinking becomes not only effortless but automatic.
So basically practicing with the symbols makes it muscle memory, right? So you don't have to think about knowing something. You simply know it if that symbol appears.
Now, the symbols that we learned are hooking our attention all by themselves. It's what we know that's talking to us, and we are listening to what our knowledge says. I call it the voice of knowledge because knowledge is talking in our head. Many times we hear the voice with different tonalities. We hear the voice of our mother, our father, our brothers and sisters, and the voice never stops talking.
So again, we are made up of all that we've learned when we were growing up. And most of this happens when we are in the age of 1 to 6, right? So this is the way that my father would have said it. This is the way my brother would have said it. Or this is what my brother said about this, right? And that is why it means this. So we start using that when we are growing, as we grow up, all that information and knowledge which is stored in our mind, we start the situation around us also starts to occur, being filtered through that knowledge and information.
The voice isn't real, it's our creation. But we believe that it's real because we give it life through the power of our faith, which means we believe without a doubt what that voice is telling us. This is when the opinions of the humans around us start taking over our mind.
So again, we become a box of others' opinion rather than actually experiencing experiences. We start taking as truth what people around us have said, right? So technically, those people may have made an assumption, and we start treating that assumption as the truth, which is not always the truth.
Everybody has an opinion of us and they tell us what we are. As very young children, we don't know what we are. The only way we can see ourselves is through a mirror, and other people act as that mirror.
So
Our mother,
again, we will see what we resonate with, right? So the only way that we can see ourselves is through a mirror, right? And other people act as the mirror. So what does this imply? That we are going to be observing and seeing what we resonate with. So whatever is happening within us, that is what we will start seeing that happening outside us also.
our mother tells us what we are and we believe her. It's completely different from what our father tells us or what our brothers and sisters tell us, but we agree with them too. People tell us how we look, and it's especially true when we are little children. Look, you have the eyes of your mother, the nose of your grandfather. We listen to all the opinions of our family, our teachers, and the big children at school. We see our image in those mirrors. We agree that this is what we are, and as soon as we agree, that opinion becomes a part of our belief system. Little by little, all these opinions modify our behavior, and in our mind, we form an image of ourselves according to what people say we are. I'm beautiful, I'm not so beautiful. I'm smart, I'm not so smart. I'm a winner, I'm a loser. I'm good at this, I'm bad at that.
So again, we develop a picture of ourselves. Okay. Now, most of this is based on assumptions. This is something that we need to understand, right? All of us are capable of doing everything. The point is whether we focus our attention on doing it or not.
At a certain point, all the opinions of our parents and teachers, religion and society make us believe that we need to be a certain way in order to be accepted. They tell us the way we should be, the way we should look, the way we should behave. We need to be this way. We shouldn't be that way. And because it's not okay for us to be what we start pretending to be what we are not.
So as soon as we start pretending, we put on a mask, we put on a facade, which is not our authentic self. So we are not being authentic to ourselves. We are not impeccable with our word to ourselves.
We need to be this way, we shouldn't be that way. And because it's not okay for us to be what we are, we start pretending to be what we are not. The fear of being rejected becomes the fear of not being good enough. And we start searching for something that we call perfection.
So again, we are looking for perfection, but with blinkers in our eyes because we are colored and covered by opinions of others. We are not being our true, authentic self when we are looking for perfection.
In our search, we form an image of perfection, the way we wish to be, but we know that we are not. And we begin to judge ourselves for that.
So again, where does this judgment come from? It comes from the opinion of others because we are perfect as we are, right? But we stop accepting ourselves because of the opinion of others. And that is what actually starts to create a problem for us, right? Because we are looking for a perfect image based on the opinion of others and not our own opinion.
We don't like ourselves and we tell ourselves, look how silly you look, how ugly you are. Look how fat, how short, how weak, how stupid you are. This is when the drama begins because now the symbols are going against us. We don't even notice that we've learned to use the symbols to reject ourselves.
So this is what is very true, right? We are our own biggest critics. We constantly are criticizing ourselves rather than embracing and accepting ourselves for what we are. We are constantly over and over criticizing ourselves. So this is something that we need to start getting aware of, that we need to stop being critical of ourselves all the time.
Before domestication, we don't care what we are or what we look like.
So today, does a baby really care as to what it's looking like or what it's doing? It doesn't, because it's being its authentic, true self. It's not bothered by what she's wearing or he's wearing. It's not bothered by what they are doing. They will load. I mean, they will do. They'll lie on the floor. They'll play with their feces. They'll play with their food. They'll do anything, right? Because they have no encumbrance. They don't have a facade. They're just being their true self. But we learn to create that facade.
Our tendency is to explore, to express our creativity, to seek pleasure and avoid pain. As little children, we are wild and free. We run around naked, without self-consciousness or self-judgment. We speak the truth because we live in truth. Our attention is in the moment. We are not afraid of the future or ashamed of the past.
So now today, most of us are not living in the moment. And where is all the action taking place? In the moment, right? But most of us are either living in the past or in the future. Now, when we look at the resilience grid, whenever you are in the past or the future, when you're thinking of the future, it will bring fear. When you're thinking of the past, it will bring up guilt. You will only be on the right side of the grid when you're operating in the present, right? Not in the past or the future. So we must learn from our past to enhance or to activate or to make better our future. But we must understand that all the action takes place in the present. So if your present is good, your past is good, and your future is based on your past. So then your future also becomes good. So that's why paying attention to the present is the most important thing that we can actually be doing for ourselves.
After domestication, we try to be good enough for everybody else, but we are no longer good enough for ourselves because we can never live up to our image of perfection.
So again, because we are looking at ourselves from the opinion of others, we create an image of perfection which is impossible to achieve, because many times it may not be within our capacity. So these zero body shapes and all that stuff which are being advertised in media today, most people cannot get there. And if they want to try to get there, then they start creating problems for themselves, right? So this becomes very important. And the media is constantly attempting to drive our image of ourselves, our opinions of various things, right? So we need to be careful. What do we want to bring into our awareness? What do we need to, or what do we want to pay attention to? This becomes very, very important here.
All of our normal human tendencies are lost in the process of domestication, and we begin to search for what we have lost. We start searching for freedom because we are no longer free to be what we really are. We start searching for happiness because we are no longer happy. We start searching for beauty because we no longer believe that we are beautiful.
So again, because we have lost touch with our true selves, our true authentic selves, we can never be happy because we are roaming around with a facade. And when you're roaming around with a falsity, how can it bring happiness? Because in your heart of hearts, you yourself know that it is a facade. So till we drop our facade, we can really never connect with our true selves. And only when we are connected with our true selves that can we experience freedom. And that freedom is what everyone is actually looking for. So Robert Monroe in the Gateway Voyage, in his first talk that we show in the Gateway Voyage, the basic point that he makes over there is that all humanity is looking only for one thing, and that is freedom, right? When you look at any culture, it is nirvana, it is moksha. What is that? We are wanting to get to freedom, and that can only come when we connect base or we touch base with our true authentic selves, so that we'll end up dropping the facade and being who we truly are.
We continue to grow, and in our adolescence, our body is programmed to introduce a substance we call hormones. Our physical body is no longer a child's, and we don't fit in with the way of life we lived before. We don't want to hear our parents tell us what to do and what not to do. We want our freedom. We want to be ourselves, but we are also afraid to be by ourselves.
So
People,
again, hormones, chemicals, right? Chemicals are constantly being secreted in our body system. It is said that any one thought can result in a cascade of maybe 1400 chemicals being secreted in the body system. Now, the chemicals basically are messengers which take the instructions to our cells in our body to tell them what to do and how to do, right? And then they start to act in that particular basis. So again, what we are thinking affects the chemicals which are secreted, which are hormone chemicals, etc., which make us become what we think we are. But are we that? When we are operating from equanimity, the number of chemicals which are uplifting are generated. When we are operating out of non-authenticity, we're not being ourselves, then the depleting chemicals start getting secreted in our body systems.
People tell us we are not a child anymore, but we are not an adult either. And it's difficult time for most humans. By the time we are teenagers, we don't need anyone to domesticate us. We have learned to judge ourselves, punish ourselves, and reward ourselves according to the same belief system we were given and using the same system of punishment and reward.
So again, we start judging everyone else around us and ourselves according to our belief systems, according to the rules and regulations that were existing where we were born, right? How we were trained, how things started to occur to us because of the opinion of others.
The domestication may be easier for people in some places in the world and harder for people in other places. But in general, none of us has a chance of escaping the domestication. None of us.
So we can only escape domestication if we are truly operating from our authentic selves, right? Or we are alone. Then we develop whatever we are. But again, the challenge here becomes that even if you're alone, you will still start to develop likes and dislikes, and you will start to develop symbolism which will hold meaning, etc. So at the end of the day, the strive is for freedom, and the freedom can only come when we let go of any kind of symbolism also. We start to transcend everything and then become our true selves.
Finally, the body matures and everything changes again. We start searching once again and now more and more. What we are searching for is ourself.
So most of the time we are only striving to find ourselves. Where will I be happy? Where will I be good? Where will I be competent? Right? We are constantly searching for ourselves.
We are searching for love because we have learned to believe that love is somewhere outside of us. We are searching for justice because there is no justice in the belief system we were taught. We are searching for truth because we only believe in the knowledge we have stored in our mind. And, of course, we are still searching for perfection because now we agree with the rest of the humans that nobody's perfect.
So again, we are constantly striving for perfection. But again, it's an opinionated perfection. It is not the authentic perception, right? If you went into that authentic level, then you would not be even striving for perception. You would be accepting whatever is from a higher state of consciousness.
Perfection.
Yeah, perfection. Okay, I think we can stop here.